Welcome everybody to tonight's CNC tips and techniques. Tonight we're going to be looking at the new project of the month. Some of you may have already received this in your email. If you haven't, it'll probably show up tomorrow or the next day. Next Wave sends out their newsletters in waves, so they go over a day or two. And for tonight, we're going to look at the design work that goes into making this month's project of the month, this little happy Thanksgiving turkey dish. There's actually a lot that goes into it, and I'll share some pictures with you next time, but sometimes it takes 2 or 3 times to get it right, and it sure did for me. I had a couple rookie mistakes along the way and had a couple other things go wrong, so I've got a couple extra spare dishes that I made along the way. So I'm going to go in tonight. We're going to take a look at, it's a 2-sided project, so I'm going to talk about how to set that up. We're going to look at some basics of bitmap tracing, and I think I've got a few tips on that to help you out, as well as talk about some node editing. And then we'll do some text on a curve tonight. So first off, most of you, I'm sure, have brought photos into VCarve to do tracing. I like to remind people that if you do a hand sketch or somebody does a hand sketch, you can also bring that into VCarve just like any other bitmap and trace it. And that's how I did it for this project. There's this little tutorial out here on how to draw a turkey. So I thought I'd draw my own turkey and use that as the piece of artwork. However, that colored photo that you see there on the screen, that would also work if you wanted to bring that in and actually use that for a tracing. But I thought I'd give a try at do a little felt tip pen work with the Sharpie. I like to draw it when like full size, and that way the thickness of the line that I draw is pretty much the size of the line that comes into VCarve. If you shrink it down in VCarve, then of course the lines get closer together, smaller. If you expand it, they get wider. So there's kind of a scaling thing that goes on when you trace a hand sketch like that. But the other thing I want to point out is that when you're all looking for artwork for a project like this, one of the places I spend a lot of time on is called Bixabay, and there's a lot of free clip art out there. And this pumpkin, for example, when you sign into Bixabay, most of the artwork is free, but they do have some stuff that's for sale. And you kind of have to watch it because, like a lot of these websites, it's a little tricky. You don't always know which one you're clicking on, if they're going to charge you or not, but it is divided up. So there's a lot of free stuff out there. But notice on the right side here of the screen that it's available in what are called PNG, which is a type of bitmap format similar to a JPEG. Typically, the PNG will have a transparent background. That's why it's gray around here. And then the other type of format is a vector graphic. Now, the bitmap or the PNG format, the photo that you see right there, you can bring that into VCarve and you can trace it like other projects tracing it. But if you're out at one of these websites and they offer you the chance to get the vector graphic, you might as well grab that and download that and use that, because most of the time that's going to save you a good bit of work and simplify it because you don't have to trace it. Here's a side-by-side comparison that the bitmap coming in is really, it's a photo, it's a piece of clip art, and that has to be traced. And where the vector graphics comes in, and you pretty much go straight to toolpathing with it. Now, what we're going to look at come December, when we start looking at the Christmas ornaments, I've started on that project, those ornaments, and there are some vector files that come in, and they still require some cleanup. So that's one of the little things we'll be looking at come December, what to look for. But mostly what you're looking for are lines that are either duplicated, overlapping, you got loops, you got things that cause problems for VCarve. But every so often you'll come across a nice graphics like this one, which is nice and clean, and this pumpkin would carve real well just as it is. So when you have the chance to get a vector graphic download, go for it, because it'll save you some time and you usually we'll get cleaner lines out of it. So with that, we'll hop over to the V-carve demo. Okay, so this dish that I made, this is cherry. It comes out of inch thick material. And when you set the project up, of course, you'll go into job setup. And if you're setting this up from scratch and picking your dimensions. But the two-sided setup, in this case, we're going to be surfacing or zeroing the Z off of the top of the board, whether it's the bottom or the top of it. There are times when it's valuable to surface off of one or the other. But for this project, since the board that I was dealing with is a nice consistent 1 inch thick, and there are no details that would that are of a concern as far as which surface I zero off of, I'm going to do it both off the top, the material surface. That just keeps everything simple. I'm also going to put the XY datum in the middle, and then you have to decide if you want to flip left or right, or front or back, or top or down, top and bottom like that. And that's just kind of personal preference, kind of depends on the project you're doing. In this case, I typically will flip left to right. It just seems more natural. Also, when I'm doing my imagery, the back image that way is still right side up, even though it may be backwards. So left to right is usually what I do, but it's just personal preference. And we'll continue. Okay. So I've got some extra drawings in here. This is kind of how when I do an initial drawing, I'll set up what I want to accomplish, have a general thought for it. So up here at the top, these markings that are in red, the dimensions that are in red represent my fixed dimensions. These are my outer dimensions. From these dimensions are the ones I need to work with. I want to try and stick to those as close as possible. And then the red dimensions down here, I want to put a 1/4 inch bottom, a 1/4 inch side on it. I want a 1/3 of an inch lip. And then this one that says 0.235, I wanted that dimension to be less than a 1/4 of an inch. And so to draw this out, it's a little bit back and forth on it, but starting out with a simple rectangle representing the side view. So let's go 10 inches on that for the width and 1 inch on the height. And then it's kind of just simply a matter of deduction or taking away material. So then from here, there's lots of ways to do this. I'm just going to make it real obvious here. I'm then going to go in here and draw a rectangle on the bottom. You can see there on the right side, it says it's a 1/4 inch tall. So that snaps to a 1/4 inch, which is nice. So I'll just let go of that. Then I'm going to go to the top up here, see if I get it to snap to 1/3 of an inch. There we go, or 0.3. That looks good. And then I start playing with some of my other dimensions. And since I already have these dimensions up here, I could use them, but let's go in and I'm just going to take a grab here. And this one is 0.35 like that. And then to keep things simple, I can take that whole design. And if we notice that my datum, my X datum here is going vertical right there. If I make sure that this drawing that I've just created is centered on that, and it looks good, I can then take that little rectangle that I drew. I could use my mirror image tool and can I say flip it about the job center, and it'll flip it right over to the other side. So I've got that going on for me. Then we want to connect this upper quarter here down to the bottom with a 30-degree angle, or because we're using a 60-degree bit. So I'll drag that down, and depending on how close we zoom in there. So there we go, right? If I can snap it, there's 60-degree. So that gives us our overall 30 for that inside angle. And I'm going to mirror image that over. And then I'm going to take that one and I'm going to make my side, which is 1/4 inch thick. So I do my offset. Now, when you work with the offset, you've seen this also with the profile toolpath. You'll see it says left, it'll say outside or right, inward, and left. And what that means, it's pretty obvious if you have a circle, if you're on the outside or inside. But that black dot right there represents the start point for that vector. So think of that as the starting line. If you were starting at that point and traveling this direction, the left is this side because you're starting at that point, and the right is this side. So it also seems to make sense if we say outward. So if I click right outward, it should create a parallel line to this lower side. Type in our dimension, just like that. Now notice that if I go into that line, again, that's the start point. If I go into node edit, see how that's green? That's my start point. However, now if I switch that start point to the bottom and make that the start point, close out of this a second, delete that line for a minute. Now when I go into my offset tool, notice that I need it to go to the left side. So I would select the opposite one. So you want to watch when you're dealing with single lines, you want to watch for that black dot representing the start point to help you determine which side to go to. So this one, again, starting up there, this is going to be the left side also. So that looks good. At this point, we've got all the lines we essentially need, so we can go in and start trimming things away. So we'll start by trimming out these top ones, get the bottom ones along here, get inside here, and then get those. And that's pretty much how I arrived. Now, this cross section is really just for illustration purposes only. It was just to help me figure out some dimensions. So now that I have that, I can go into my dimension tool and I can strike the dimensions that I need. And that's how I arrived at these other dimensions. Now, for practical purposes, I rounded some of these off like to a 2 decimal points or 3 decimal points. This isn't that critical of a mechanical shape that small fraction of an inch here is going to make a difference. So to keep things simple, like I said, I kept things down to 2 or 1 decimal points. So now that I have all those basic dimensions, I can now go into my main drawing and start laying out my shape. So I'll take the oval tool. Again, we're going to take the anchor point. We want the anchor point to be at the middle of our project. So we'll type in 0, 0 for anchor point. And then the width of our project is 10 inches by 6 inches, and click create. And I made an error. Yep. I have to go back in and let's undo that. 10 inches, not 13. Here we go. Okay, so we've got that set up. Then I can start going in, and I could go in. I do have these dimensions here, 9.3 and 5.3. I also have the offset. Now, I want to point something out here. The offset tool, which we've used a couple of times, is really convenient. So if I go in here and I want to go inward, and I'm going to go inward by 0.35. So I could type in 0.35 like that. And by, casually looking at that, it looks good. And sometimes it works out fine. But notice something. Let's see if it does it this time. If I go into my outside vector and click node edit, you see how we have 4 Bezier curves around the outside. That's a nice clean image. The fewer points you have on a curve, usually the better, because the router is going to use calculations to go from one point to the other. And the more you have, sometimes that can actually slow down the router. If I click on this middle one, look what I have. When you use the offset tool, and these aren't even Bezier curves, these are all straight segments. So when you go to carve this with the toolpath has to calculate the distance from each one of those. And you end up with G-code, that a separate line of G-code for every one of those nodes. And it can really slow down your tool pathing. And you can also end up with, rather than a nice curve, you'll end up with a straight line between all those. You end up with little teeny facets. You may not notice it, it may stand out, but I have used this approach sometimes like more organic shapes. It has more S curves or something like that. And I've actually seen to where it starts to flatten some areas out. I'll get some little kinks in it. So rather than use the offset tool, let's delete all of that. I could go in again. I could just draw another rectangle or another oval instead, rather. Or what I tend to do, just from a shortcut standpoint, I tend to hit Control C for copy and Control V for paste. And if we look at here, you can't really see it. There's two lines at this point. But while that second line is still active, I go inside my size tool, and then this is where I'll uncheck this. Well, let's just leave it checked for a minute. I'm going to hit 9.3 up here for the width. And the height ends up being 5.58, where over here, we're at 5.53. Oh, I'm sorry, that is correct. 5.3 is right here for the width. Now let's figure out what's going on there. Okay, so let's apply that. All right. Okay, so what I had set up here was I had my link the XY. So when you link it, it reduced it by the same percentage in both directions. But because it's an oval, that percentage, if I back up here a second, let's do it again. I'm going to type 9.3. Notice how that's 93% of the width, but when I take 90% of the height, it ends up being a different amount. So if I want a nice even space around there, I'm better off in this case to actually enter that amount at 5.3. And now I have a nice even space all the way around. Now that, that was kind of a long approach to doing it because like I said, you could just go into the draw ellipse tool and type in another one. I tend to do it, like I said, because I use the Control Copy and Control Paste keys a lot. So at this point, we've got these two lines going, which represent these 2 points right here. Now we also need a line for this point and for this point at the bottom. So at this point, I'm going to take, and we'll do the long approach here. We'll go into the draw ellipse, and I'm going to type in my bottom dimension, which is 9.53 by 5.53. So we'll type in for that 9.53 by 5.53. And then looks like I still might need one more. Nope, I don't think I need any more dimensions. Now what I'm going to do, this vector right here actually belongs to the bottom. It belongs to that point right there. So I'm going to right click on that and do a move to other side. You can see how it turned light green, and that's because it's on the other side. I also want my overall perimeter vector on the other side also. So I'm going to duplicate that, or actually I'm going to copy this one. Rather than move it, I'm going to do a copy. Now up at the top up here, we've got flip to the other side. So let me flip to the other side for a minute. And there you can see the two vectors. Now, the reason I only need those two vectors on the back side is because the way the chamfer toolpath works is the chamfer toolpath is going to use this line right here. And so I don't actually need a vector for this little bottom corner. So I only need these two vectors on the top side and the other two on the bottom side. Notice I also don't have an inside vector for this corner right here. There's no vector for that because when I set up the chamfering toolpath, it's going to go from this point down to that, and it'll determine itself where that has to end. Okay, next up, if we look at the design down here, because it's a two-sided project, I also need to add some holes for the registration pins. So let me turn those on. So there you can see how I've got a couple little pieces of plastic tubing that I'm using for registration pins. Now, it's all spelled out in the how-to document that you'll get with the newsletter and the download. But what I use for these pins is actually 3/8 inch PEX plumbing pipe. It's like a supply line for under the sink or a toilet or such. And I cut it off the utility knife. I like it because it's very consistent in diameter. It's inexpensive. It's easy to cut. It's not going to damage my router bit if I hit it. And so it's kind of consumable if I need another one. I just buy a length of it. And if I lose one up to vacuum, no big deal. I'll cut another one. So that's what I use. And the diameter of the hole, I set that at 3/8 of an inch. And in this case, we're going to go an inch in from each corner. So to set that up, I'll go get the circle tool and set the diameter at 0.375. And based on the dimensions that I have for my overall project, I'm going to measure off the middle. So off the middle, if I went all the way over, that would be 6 inches. So I'm going to come back 5. So it's going to be a positive 5 in the X. And it's going to be 3.5, a positive 2.5 in the Y, 2.5. So let's see if that works out. And there it is. So there you can see I just drew that. And then I can draw the other one, and that's going to be the opposite of that. So I simply type in a -5 and a -2.5, create that, and I have my other registration hole. Now, these two holes we will also need on the other side of the project. So I'll select those, right-click, and do a copy to other side. And those now, if we peek at the other side, we can see we have our two holes. Now notice how they, in this case, it's the upper left and the bottom right. If we go back this way, it's the bottom left and the upper right. That's because we're flipping left and right. And when we set up our table, we drill the holes inside the spoil board. This is actually the pattern that'll go on the spoil board so that the bottom faces up and the pins face down. And we'll take a look at that either more later today or next week for sure. Okay, now that I have the basic setup going right there, the next thing is to deal with the graphics that we're going to set up. So for that, let me bring up, see if I have that. I had that in here someplace. I thought, there we go. Okay, so that's the drawing. I imported that photo in here. It imports just like a piece of clip art. Now, I don't need this whole piece of paperwork. And the way to crop inside of VCarve is to take a rectangle, draw or a shape. You just need a vector going around your object. Hold the shift key down, select the clip art or the photograph, and you know that it's selected when there's a little pink line going around the outside, and it usually is darker in contrast. And then the crop tool is right here. You can just click crop like that, and it just wipes out the background. And now if I slide the photo down, we still have the rectangle. We don't need that, so I can select it and delete it. Now let me show you another little trick. Sometimes, like in this shape, if I didn't want that pen in there, I could actually take any of these shapes work, even this freehand drawing tool. If I just draw around this shape like this and go back and stop, and then I'm going to go ahead and click on the connect there. So it's connected. Let's see here. Click, connect there. So now it's one continuous vector. Now notice when I'll hold the shift key down, select the photo. I'll do the crop again, and it crops it exactly to my line. So whatever your enclosed line is, whatever that shape is, you can crop it to that size. So that comes in handy. Now to trace this, the basic tracing of this is pretty straightforward. We use this trace tool as usual. Now, because there's some color here, and I think I used a blue ink pen on this originally, it's coming up with some different hues of blue. I really only need one, so I usually switch it to black and white like that, because that's really the image that I need. And then I'm usually put everything at about middle to start with. I'm not going to group the vectors in this case. Preview, and there we can see the vector lines going all the way around. And apply and close. Okay, so now I can take these vectors. Let's take and drag that photo away. I'm going to take that image and center that in my dish. And I'm going to draw this. This is some information. Any of you have looked at the class that's online that I do, or have taken any of my classes, this is one of the diagrams I offer people. And I'll include this with the email that I send out to everybody too. This gives you a rundown of what different node edit points look like. And I do a full demonstration of that in the class that's online if you want to take a look at that. But I'm going to use this information tonight to point out how we might want to node edit this turkey. First of all, if I select all that information and all those vectors, go down and go into node edit mode, I have quite a few extra nodes in there. It's not too bad, but it can be simplified. So the first thing I like to do is to go into this tool right here called Curve Fit Vectors. And this will help to remove some of the extra vectors. So in this case, I will always use Bezier curves at 90% of the time. The tolerance of 0.005, that's about the thickness of a piece of paper. For this particular drawing, that's quite acceptable to be if my line ends up being within that much of my original line. I'm going to go ahead and keep sharp corners because there are a few areas here that I want to keep kind of like inside sharp corners. And I'm going to do replace selected vectors. When I preview this, when I click preview, notice how it simplifies it. One click and we have like a half or a third as many vectors. And this looks pretty good, so I'm going to say okay. And as a result, everything has gotten a lot smoother. However, we still have a couple of areas in here where we have some bumps in it. Maybe this drumstick, we want to even things out. So at this case, with whatever drawing you're working on, if you want to even something out, this is where going in and learning how to use node edit is really handy. So I'm going to select that line, go into node edit. The N key is the shortcut for that. And that shows all these nodes. So remember I mentioned, usually the fewer nodes, the better. So I'm going to start up here. Actually, I'm going to do one other thing first, is I'm going to go out of node edit. I'm going to copy all of this. And I'm going to copy it to a new layer. And I'm going to call this original and I'm going to give it a color green. Okay. So there's the original. Right now, my red vectors, let's do something here. Let's turn that off. I'm going to select all those vectors. The only reason I'm doing them in red is because that I had the target dimension layer activated. So I'm going to take and move all of these over to my dish vector, which are black. Turn this one back on. Now notice how the green one is showing up even though the black one is there. And that has to do with the order that things are in over here. It's kind of a reverse order. The one that's on the bottom is going to be the most prominent. I sometimes wish VCarve would flip this and make the more prominent one on top, but it's kind of the opposite. So notice that as I move this up in the order, notice when this vector goes on top of the dish vector, it actually means it's underneath it, or it's click like that. And now the green vector is hiding behind the black vector. If I turn this one off, you can see it's still there. So the reason I have that stacked, and one more thing, because I'm going to use it as my guide. So I'm going to go into the original. I'm going to lock that. You see a little lock icon here. That way I cannot edit or move those vectors. I want those vectors to stay where they're at. So let's go in here. And I'm going to just show you a little bit of node editing on this. So we can see the green vector is back there. If you see it's still there, but I'm going to go into node edit. And this is where I go in and start getting rid of some of these extra vectors. So to start with, I'm going to work on the top side of this leg. I'm going to go over that little vector or that node, right click. Notice how the D key is the shortcut key. And I can delete like that, or I can surround some of those like that, go in and delete and get rid of a couple extras. So in this case, I'll just hit the D key on my keyboard. And now we have this line coming down. Now notice how these are black with one control arm. That control arm is controlling that part. But the reason it's black is that this is a straight line. There's no Bezier curve there. So if I go over the line till I get the little line symbol, right click and convert that to a Bezier, that gives me some handles. And I can take these two handles and stretch these up. I'm also going to go up the upper right up here and turn off my snap because that makes things jump around a little bit. And now I'm going to just start stretching this line out so it comes close to the green line. That's how I'm using the green line as a pattern. And again, a lot will depend on how much precision you need in your drawing, but this usually works quite well. Okay, here I'm going to hit the D key on the keyboard to delete that. And then I'm going to use this handle, go out like that. And then let's do the same thing down here. Now I'm going to take and hold the shift key down, click on that one, that one, that one, go all the way up along here, click on all the blue ones. And let's go all the way up to, let's try that. And then I'm going to hit the D key to delete all those. And they're all gone. Once again, so I've got a straight line. So I can go in, convert that to a Bezier, stretch these down, get a nice even curve there. And then up here, let's just go ahead and delete this one. I'm going to delete that, grab that. Maybe I'll just move that out just a tad. If you get in a situation where these two handles like I'm dealing now just aren't getting you the curve that you need, you could then go into the middle and do an insert point, and it'll insert a Bezier handle in the middle, and then that one you can pull down or up if you need to. So don't be afraid to add an extra point. You just want to avoid a lot of extra points if possible. Now, do I need to do this for this whole thing? No, I don't. But depending on the design you're working on, um, you may want it cleaner than this. Sometimes I'll just go in and rather than even do, I'll just delete a bunch of points like this, grab the one that's there, stretch it down, maybe just delete that point. Let's see if I can delete that. Delete, there we go. You know, and like up along the top of the turkey here, there's lots of extra points up here, so I could select them like that, hit delete, delete, delete. Once you get practiced with this, it's a little tedious, but it goes fairly quickly because as you can see, it's surprising how with only a couple of points you can match the line. I'm going to stop with that work there, but you can see how we've got some nice curves going on now where we reworked it. You know, a situation like this right here where this little piece is connected, maybe if I want to do something there different, I could go in over that node, right click, see if it'll get it here, right click, hit cut, cut that one. Then I could grab these up here like this, start working with those, decide what kind of shape I want. And then with that vector that's left there, I can simply connect it with the connect join tool. And then these, I probably want to bring down a little closer to each other, straighten that one out a little bit, and then I can do a connect on that also. And then I've just separated that little piece. So with that, I'm going to take that part for now, and I'm just going to set that one aside, and I'm going to grab this one, and since this one's all done, and I move that one back up. So once again, I'll send this chart out, but if you look at this chart when you get it, we can look at it a little bit now. Each of those nodes do something different. You've got different types of line, and then the right mouse click will bring up a local menu. And in this local menu right now, based on what I have selected down here, which I can't really say for sure which it is, but I'm not able to change it to a Bezier, probably because it's already a Bezier, okay? But I could change it to a line, to an arc. I could add points, delete points. So all these commands are available based on the type of node or section of line that you have selected. Okay, next up, we're going to type in some text on a curve. And for that, to start with, let's just go in and select that inner shape right there. And that's what I'm going to use for my curve. But before I do that, let's go into text tool, and we're going to type happy Thanksgiving. Close out of that. Then I'm going to select that curve and go into my curve, text on a curve tool. And that looks pretty good, except we need it up a little higher. So what I can do then is I can add an offset distance. Let's go 5 inches, see how that looks. That looks pretty good. And then if I want a different font, I go back into my text tool and I can start looking for different fonts. If there's some of the kind of font that I think I might like. Let's try something like that. Looks pretty good. Maybe I want it bold. Close out of that. Now we have, now that I made it bold, we can see how we have some problems here where things are too close. To solve that, we go back into the text tool and notice when I hold my cursor, take my cursor, go up between a couple letters, you can see a little symbol there. You see a V and an A on the outside of it, and you see two little arrows pointed towards each other in the middle. That's going to move things closer together. If I hold the Shift key down, notice how those arrows change direction. And now when I left click, it moves those letters apart. So I could just go to each spacing and get the spacing that I want to use. And right now, mostly I'm taking things and moving them away from each other, but there are times when you'll use it to move them towards each other. This one's a little tricky, so I'm going to get in close. There we go. Got that, looks pretty good. Then I'll go over here. A couple of clicks on each of those. And put a little more space between that. Okay, so we've pretty much got that all set up. Now, that was actually pretty painless. There are times when it doesn't happen that well or that easily. So let's me take that for a minute, and I'm just going to drag that down here and make a copy of it. And I'm going to do this all over again. And I'm going to set this up a little different. I'm going to take that vector and go into Node Edit, and notice how the Start button is at the top. Okay, we got lucky. That's an easy place for it. But you may find that the Start button might have been here at the bottom, and I can make that the start point. And this is usually what throws people a curve, so to speak. If I select the text and that curve, and now I go into on a curve, it's like, oops, I'm upside down. What's going on here? And it's like, well, let's see. Let's go on the other side of the curve. Well, that puts it on the outside. How about below the curve? Well, that's nice if I want to have it on the top side, but I want to get it to the bottom. It's like, how do I get it to the bottom? You could go left, you go right. Well, the simplest thing to do is to grab that. You see the green button up there? That's the center point for your text. That's not the start point for the oval, because remember, we moved that to the bottom. But if I grab that, I can just move the text and drag it and snap it down to the bottom. Now, of course, we need to flip it. So let's go above the curve. Okay, that's the wrong way. Now let's go the other side of the curve. And there we are. We're back in the muddy. So sometimes you just have to click around and just kind of understand, because you got 2 or 3 options there that are flipping things around. But once we've got that set up, we can now save it as such. So we've got the vectors for the front side pretty well set up. The one thing that we'll end up doing yet is probably, in fact, I can see right now, I'm going to move this over and even move this up maybe just a little bit like that. Once we start doing the tool pathing, we'll find that whether or not this Happy Thanksgiving is in the right place or not, because we need to make sure that it's set in far enough from that bottom edge, and we don't have a line for that right now. We could calculate it. We could add it in. That'd be one way to do it. And if you wanted to do that, let's just do a calculation on that. I'll go get my dimension tool, and let's turn the snaps on. Let's pull a dimension off of horizontal. Okay, so it's 843 on that inside. By 443. So if we went in and set up an oval now, 8.43 by 4.43. And so that's the inside of the dish. So you can see why, before this type was probably down here, it would have gone up on the edge of the dish. So again, like I've said before, there could be 2 or 3 ways to do things. This is one way. I could even use this curve. If I wanted that curve to be actually be the curve for my Thanksgiving text, let's go ahead and just recorrect that or recenter that. So I'll select that curve, go back into my curve tool. And now I can back off on the amount of offset. That looks pretty good. So that's going to be a nice even offset now from the inside corner of the dish. If we go to the bottom side, there's not much to say about the bottom side until we get to the tool pathing. But if you did want to add some sort of inscription to this, made by or to or the year or some poem or something like that, you can certainly add that to the bottom as well, same way that we did on the top. Well, with that, let's open it up to questions. Anybody have any questions about the layout tonight?
Those alignment holes, do they go all the way through?
Not necessarily. The index pins that I'm using or the registration pins that I'm using, I cut those at about 1 inch long, and then I make my holes about 0.55 deep. So they don't in this case. On thinner boards, they may go all the way through.
Into your spoil board?
In my spoil board, they go down into, like there's one right here. They go about 1/2 inch deep into the spoil board.
So do you drill those holes in the spoil board with the router, the CNC?
I do, yes, absolutely. In fact, you can see how this is the top. This is the one we've been working on tonight, those index pins right there. I'm getting ready to flip this over. When I flip it over, if I flip this drawing over it, let's see here, flip this over right here, you can see how those index pins are in the opposite corners now. So these 2 holes that you see right here are the ones that I will actually use to drill the holes into the spoil board.
So is that another tool path? Or
that is a separate tool path, yes.
is that going to be included in the project of the month?
It absolutely is. Yes, all the tool paths are included with the packet. And it tells you how to save them. We'll be taking a close look at that next week as well, how to create all these tool paths and how to save them and how to run them. There ends up being about at least 8 tool paths to run, use 3 different bits.
And you said you did that with cherry?
I did this one in cherry. Yeah, this was cherry, but any kind of nice hardwood would work. This was actually a fairly light colored piece of cherry, but this was cherry. I've used oak, walnut, maple.
Seems like the cherry carves better than oak. Oak is like really grainy.
The oak can be really grainy. Yeah, I cherry, maple. I mean, cherry is my favorite by far. I like it because it's light colored. It carves really well. Maple I really like as well. It's a little bit harder, of course, but it's less expensive and it's a lighter color. But almost, I would say 80% of what I do, I carve with cherry, maple, or walnut.
What about hickory?
Hickory sounds good. It's I've never carved it. I've never used it on the CNC though.
I found a piece today at Menards. 1x6, 8 foot long, not a single knot in it.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
I think hickory can be pretty hard too, and maybe a little splintery, but
I hope it
give
is,
it a
'cause
try.
So I got
Going to
distracted. How'd you go? What'd you do to go between the letters to spread them apart?
Oh, to spread the letters apart? Sure. Let's take a look at that. So I select the text just by clicking on it, so it's highlighted, and then go back inside of the text tool. And when you go up to the letters, you see how, okay, so there's my cursor, okay? When I take my cursor up to the letters, it changes to a symbol. And what that little plus sign, right above the plus is a little V, and there's a couple arrows pointing towards each other. And if I hold the shift key down, those arrows go the other direction. And when I left mouse click, it goes apart. If I let go of the shift key, then it goes together.
So it just automatically does that when you wander up into your.
It does, yeah. Yeah, there's no special tools. It's like the other trick to this is that, so if I want to spread this apart like this, so I'm holding the shift key down right now to spread it apart. If I want to like do a double the amount, if I hold the control key down also, notice how it does a large amount as opposed to just a tiny amount. So if I just hold the control key down, it'll jump together in large steps. So it's a way to quickly make things move if you want to move things quickly.
Randy, you mentioned about classes. Can you provide additional information about that?
Yeah, so if you've been out to the Next Wave website, on the webinar page, down at the bottom of the webinar, there are 4 VCarve classes that I have posted there.
Okay.
And you can find the links for that.
Okay. Do you provide additional classes beyond that or not?
Beyond that, I don't have a series of classes at this point. I will be doing some eventually. Beyond that, I do a lot of one-on-one training if people are interested in that. And then, of course, we're doing these webinars where people are free to bring up questions or ask about a specific technique, and I'll definitely address it.
Okay, because I'm at the very beginning stages right now. So can you provide information about one-on-one classes?
Yeah, you know what? I'll put those in the email this week.
Okay.
And you definitely, it would be a really good place to start. I've also got another series I did.
On being in town, and that he hadn't really given her all that money to hide.
Anita, please relay just to what the defendant said to you and you said to her.
I told her about.
Randy, this is Dick Reynolds. Have
Yeah,
you ever used AI to help you in design?
You know, I have played with it a bit. Hang on just a second.
What happened with that guy?
Dick, you can unmute yourself again if you need to. I've been playing with it to create some 3D models, and there's about 3 or 4 steps you have to go through. Vetric recently released a little video on that. It's getting really close to being able to do that kind of stuff.
Randy,
Who'd you say is releasing some?
Yes.
So Vetric, the VCarve company, they released a video on how to use it to create some 3D art recently.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Did you know that?
Yep.
so Randy, you can provide additional information about the one-on-one classes? I didn't get all the information from you.
So Dave, I'll put a link in the email. I'm sending out the video.
Okay.
And the information, yeah, it's on the webinar website, but I'll go ahead and put a link in the email this week so you can look for it.
Yeah, these are great classes, but I'm at the very beginning stages here. So these are valuable classes, but again, I need to start from ground zero.
That'll help you out. And I've also include a link to another series that I did actually a couple of years ago now, but it's still relevant because it's very basic.
Because I know that I know that the platform has been amended to changes up to 12.5 or something like that. So
yeah. Yeah, a lot of what I try to cover is pretty relative to any version going back a couple of versions. Some of the tools have been moved around and stuff like that. But yeah, I would encourage you to check out those classes. They are kind of, I say, intense because I go over a lot of information.
Yeah,
And
I go over it 2, 3 times, and so
yeah,
again, I'm a slow learner. So
oh,
so
that's okay. It's a lot to take in. It's a lot to learn.
I appreciate it.
Yep, absolutely.
Hey, Randy,
Yeah, Bill.
on when you're moving those letters, if you add the Alt key, does that shift all of them at once? Shift, Control, Alt.
I don't think so.
It does. Look at that.
Okay.
Another great trick. So the other place that sometimes that is done, let's see here, go back into. So in the text of a curve up here, you also could click on this spacing here, and that's another place where you could space them all out. So if you need to space, like what we started out with tonight, everything was overlapping a little bit. I can't get back to where it was because it's not going to let me, but even now everything is too tight. So you could use this text spacing tool right here. And then from here, when I typically, yeah,
Good.
yep. Yeah, so again, you mentioned the Alt key. That's another shortcut key for that.
Trying to step on your toes, Randy, but the gentleman who's just beginning, I don't know if you're familiar with IDC Woodcraft.
Yep.
He has a lot of free YouTube videos that he goes through and teaches you how to do basic metric stuff.
He's really good too. Yeah, absolutely.
So can you provide that link? That sounds interesting.
Sure. Yeah, Dave, I'll add that to the email as well. Everybody can check that as well. Yeah, I've talked to a few of those guys over there. In fact, they use one of our machines.
Thank you for your patience.
Not a problem. No, not a problem. It's a long learning curve. Any of those guys who are online tonight know that.
So did
Randy?
you mention in your one class, are you a school teacher?
I was years
you
ago.
were. Oh, okay, you were. Oh, okay. I thought maybe you're taught industrial arts or something currently.
Well, that's where I started out. Yeah, I started out with an industrial arts, teaching junior high industrial arts for a couple of years. And then I went into industry and I ended up in the commercial world for the last 30 years.
So is this what you do?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. In some ways, well, I've had my own shop. I managed a couple of shops. I've been in manufacturing, a couple of manufacturing companies, but somewhere along the way, it always seems like I ended up in some role relative to training in industry. So the question came up about using AI. Is anybody else out there in the group tried AI for anything for artwork?
No.
We use VistaSculpt. It's kind of cool.
VistaScope?
Yep.
Not familiar with that.
Yeah, and they let you do free copy. You just try it for free, but you can't actually output anything. I signed up for it, but you know, you were on the Vetric group meeting or whatever it is, and
Correct.
you were a presenter when they presented the AI product they're going to be coming out with. It sounds pretty reasonable, pretty cheap.
Okay. Yeah, I knew they were working on something. I knew it was only a matter of time. There's been several guys out there doing some hacks over the last couple of years, which required you to have like 2 or 3 different pieces of software, mostly free. And it was pretty capable, but it's really progressing very quickly. I've also noticed too that like that Bixabay site that I just mentioned to you, a lot of their artwork is AI generated, which is fine. You know, I mean, it's free, it's readily available, but it's just no end to it now. And I'm kind of looking towards the time when I could, use it to, like, say, if I want to create I don't know, a Western scene or a hunting scene or something like that, see what it comes up with.
Well, I get a lot of stuff off of Shutterstock. And they
Oh,
say,
yeah.
and they got words across it that say you can't copy it, but I've had no problem copying it.
Yeah,
Well-
they're mostly looking at if you were to put that on a brochure, put it on an advertisement or marketing and stuff like that. I try to respect copyrights when I see them. I usually keep track of the copyrights I'm using. But there's a lot of free stuff out there, even from that company.
Well, if you're just talking about standard vectors, I guess ChatGPT, you can generate pictures from that,
Oh,
and then
absolutely.
VistaSculpt, I did that to do 3D stuff.
Yeah, the thing that's neat about the 3D stuff, and this is what I've played with a little bit, is that for years there's been techniques where you could take essentially a black and white negative or a black and white photo, and it'll carve the light areas shallow, the dark areas deep, and it seems like, well, hey, it's a black and white photo, that ought to work really well. But what I have to point out to people is that if you look at a person's smiling face, if they have dark eyebrows and light colored skin, their eyebrows are going to be holes in their forehead because they're dark, and their teeth are going to stick out, and their light colored hair is going to stick out, and a shadow is going to go back. And it ends up being, and it used to be pretty ghoulish what the results were. But the AI is able to create 3D imagery in the digital world that truly understands the difference in the depth for these reliefs, and it's becoming pretty powerful. What any other questions from anybody tonight?
One real quick one, Randy. What are you going to carve this with?
So this gets carved with a 60-degree V bit, a straight bit for clearing it out. Those are the two main bits, and a 1/4-inch straight bit.
Again, this is in version 12, isn't it?
It is.
You're going to force me into buying that, aren't you?
Well, again, if it doesn't work out for you, I could get you the vectors for it so you could import it. Yeah, I wish there was a way.
I need to upgrade, but I don't know how long I'm going to keep on working. So
You're in 10.5 right now?
I'm in 10.5, yeah.
Yeah, that's still a very capable program, just not compatible with the new stuff.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of stuff you're doing that I can't do in the in the note editing and stuff. So
Well, the note editing shouldn't be too much different.
I have to go in and try it. I have to go in and try it again.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff I download is rough. The edges are rough, and if you shrink it down small enough, it'll carve. But if you blow it up bigger, and then you got to really clean it up. So,
Yeah, for those of you who haven't done note editing, I know this looks pretty overwhelming, but if you just start, if you have a simple design like this, I mean, it could take like what you saw originally, the one I had there to start with down here. That one, I could spend 30 minutes cleaning that up, or an hour if I was just beginning at it. So it can be a bit of a cleanup on that. That's why it's really important, when possible, start out with as clean of clip art as possible. Clip art that's a little blurry gives you rough edges. Clip art that's like has shading in it will give you rough edges. So you want nice clean clip art if you're going to trace it. Yeah, so you can see the picture right here, and we'll look at this next week in detail, but I used a 1/2-inch straight bit to clear out this bowl area first, and then I used a 60-degree V bit for the edge and for the turkey design. And then the 1/4-inch bit that's in there right now was used to cut the dowels for the registration. So those 3 bits did everything.
This isn't actually a 3D design in, it's just a what, 2.5D?
Yeah, I guess it's a good thing. You call it 2.5D. Sure.
Okay.
So you said you used a 1/2 inch straight bit. So in lieu of that, could you use a 1/4 inch?
You could, sure, for cleaning out the bottom of this.
Yeah.
This is a 2-horse spindle on my HD 500, and the 1/2 inch bit works well. If you have a smaller tool, either like an SD or a Piranha or something, the 1/4 inch probably makes sense.
I have a 2.5 horsepower, but it's only a 1/4 inch.
Well, you know what?
Years ago, you
I
handled
have
the
to-
sale of the Buskirk farm to the family of Martha Wilton. Is that correct?
What happened?
You transacted a sale which amounted to $45,000.
The 1/2 inch bit that I used had a 1/4 inch shank on it as also though. So you can get a 1/2 inch bit with a 1/4 inch shank.
Oh, you can?
Yeah, it wasn't an up spiral, it was just a straight bit.
So you can get a 1/2 inch bit with a 1/4 inch shank. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, it's not a problem. Yeah, it works out well. In fact, it's one of my go-to bits. I do a lot of so I don't know if any of you or how many of you are familiar with Mark Adams School of Woodworking down in near Indian or Franklin, Indiana, it's south of Indianapolis. But if you're looking for a week-long class vacation time kind of thing, he has hundreds of classes every year that he has that he hosts down there. And I have 6 of these HD 500s down at that school. They all have 1/4 inch shank collets on them. And yeah, I use that 1/2 inch bit in all those machines. And it
Where
works
do you
quite
get
well.
that at? What brand is that?
Whiteside makes one.
Okay.
There's some off brands. Freud makes one.
Hmm. And it's just a 1/2 inch straight bit.
It is. Let me see if let me have a picture of it here. Let's see here.
Woodpeckers makes it too.
Who's that?
Woodpeckers makes it too.
Absolutely. Like I said, it's a pretty standard bit. Here we go.
But it's just,
I'm hoping
quarter-
Woodpecker buys Shopsmith myself, but
Yeah. Okay, go for it.
Well, if they do, you won't be able to afford it.
well, actually, I've watched Shopsmith for a long time, was really tempted, but, now I got a router. But, so that's just a 1/4 inch shank
There it
with
is.
that.
There it is right there. So there's the picture of it.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's a straight cutter.
it's just a straight cut. Yeah,
Oh, that's like a regular router bit.
it is just a
Oh, I got
regular router bit.
I've got that.
Hey, you know what, guys? Almost any router bit will work in the CNC.
Okay.
Carbide tip is by far better than high-speed steel, which tend to burn up quicker. But yeah, this kind of style bit right here for a 1/2 inch on these lighter duty machines, it gives me a little wider cutting area. As long as I ramp it in, I don't have, it's not an end cutting, it's not an end mill, so it's not a true end mill, so it's not going to cut on the end. But as long as I ramp it in, I do all that clearance with it, and it works out really well. And they're fairly inexpensive too for what you get.
And as far as creating or putting a tool in your database, what do you use?
I just use the same end mill setup as an end mill one. I just use a 1/2 inch end mill setting, and feeds and speeds aren't that much different either. In fact,
Yeah, Randy,
remind me of that next time, and I'll show you how to add this bit to your tool database.
Okay. Yeah, because I actually have that bit.
Yeah, if you have it, I'd use it.
Okay.
yeah, Randy, I just ordered a woodpecker bit that's a bottom cutting end mill. It's actually got bevels across the bottom for bottom cutting.
So this bit right here, you can see right there at the bottom, that's what's called an end mill because it actually has shearing action on the
Yeah.
bottom edge. Also happens to be a spiral, which is typical of end mills. But this type of bit, you can essentially drill with it because it has that end cutting end to it. It's still advisable to use a ramp when, as often as possible, but yeah, that's a really good bit.
So that tool path that's created with this project of the month, the tool path is for the 1/2 inch bit.
Yeah, yes, for the one with the 1/2 inch, then you use you set it up with a 1/2 inch bit. For this one right here, it uses a 1/2 inch bit tool path. Yep.
So did you glue that project to your spoil board?
No, that I did with hot melt glue.
Yeah, I see that.
So I know that topic came up. In fact, Fred sent some information out to me this week. We're going to get to it. I'm going to put together kind of a show and tell here for one of these meetings. But Fred sent me some nice pictures of his spoil board setup where he's using cams and some hold downs and such. I use a variety of hold down methods for a lot of projects like this. I just put a couple beads of hot melt glue around it like that. And it's surprising how well it works. So from there, well, there, just a quick one. There you can see the list of tool paths, some of them. And that's a quick peek at the V bit that I use. It's a larger size, but a small one works also. But let's look down here. There's the registration pins. Yeah, so again, that's the 1/4 inch bit that I'm using for doing the holes in the project, and then making sure that they fit. Oh, here, so there you can see there, I'm using just an old chisel to pry it off the table. And it takes that to pop it off. What I like about it, it does lift a little bit of fiber off the table, but it doesn't cause hardly any damage compared to like if you're using screws, which is another method for doing hold downs. And in my case, this table, I don't have the other holes. Some people put a lot of other holes in the table for hold downs. I have used those. I'm pretty pragmatic. I kind of go with what works. And in this kind of project, this worked out really well.
So that's the one you have a spoil board on top of your spoil board.
This is the one where I actually glued a piece of 3/4 inch MDF on top of the black spoil boards from Next Wave.
This isn't a 510, is it?
It's a 500.
Okay, I would say it looks a little narrower.
A little narrower, yeah. Yeah, this is a great little machine.
All sorts of fancy stuff in mine. I've got the HD 544 and I put T-tracks and dog holes and 1/4-20 threads. And you know what? I'm scared to hit clamps. So I basically double side tape everything.
That's great. Yeah, no, I've had some tables where I put threaded inserts in the table, and then the other thing that I've done also is skipping the threaded inserts. I've drilled out a hole using a 3/16 inch bit, maybe at about 0.2, maybe 0.22 or something like that. I thread in my nut or my bolt into that, then take the bolt out. And I throw a little either CA glue or even yellow glue into that hole, and it hardens the MDF and makes it almost as hard as a nut. And it threads right into it. And that way I don't have any metal in the table at all. But
oh, really?
Yeah, you'd be surprised how well the right size hole is, and you can thread a bolt down into that MDF and then harden that thread with some CA glue or even some yellow glue, and it holds really well.
Has anybody tried the tight bond, thin, medium, and thick?
I have some of the thick glue. Oh, you need-
makes it, Type bond makes it thin. I use it on knots in my cedar deck
Yeah.
furniture.
Are you talking about wood glue?
No, CA glue, I think.
It's CA.
Oh, really? Okay.
But it's just like water. You put a drop of it in the middle of a knot and it soaks right down in the knot.
Huh.
So right there, you can see that I'm drilling out the holes in the deck for where the registration pins will go into. So I've got one here and one over there. And that white hole in the middle, that's where I had another registration pin that I just happened to patch. So I just stuck a dowel in it and played it off. So you can see my spoil board is exactly that. I'm not afraid to cut into it, drill into it. I make use of it as a mounting table as much as possible. And when it gets a little rough, then I just put a new one on.
So I'm going to ask a question unrelated. I missed your last Ready to Control course. Are you having another one in sometime in the future?
For Ready to Control,
Yes.
I will be having it in the future. The recording for that is available from the last one if you want to catch that.
Oh, it is? Is it
Yeah.
on that page?
It's on the webinar page also.
Page?
Yep,
Okay.
it is. You scroll down the webinar page, it'll be on that page as well.
Because I really like Ready to Control, and I've got a monitor and a computer on my machine for it, but last time I used it, somehow it locked up and right in the middle of the project, so I just haven't gone back to it yet.
So I really like Ready to Control also, and it has served me really well. Yeah, keep an eye on that. You want to verify what version you have of it. Make sure it's the most recent version. Is your computer in the shop? Does it have internet access?
Oh yeah, yep.
Okay, because then if you're logged in, you should get a notice that there's an update available. So the other possibility is that if sometimes if your computer is overloaded or something, that may cause it to stall out. But if it happens again or twice, once or twice again, I would suggest calling tech support and having them help you diagnose that, because that program has proven to be really reliable, and it shouldn't be doing that.
I'm just not that impressed with the 10.1 pendant. That's all.
Do you have the 10.1 pendant?
I do.
Oh, okay.
It just I don't think I think they've got a long way to go to make that as viable. One thing that's cool, I believe, that's on the Ready to Control is the fact that you can do an air cut, but it actually has the Z moves up and down, which it does not do with the 10.1.
Okay.
The air cut only air cuts on the 10.1. With the Ready Control, it actually moves up and down a little bit above the work, so you can see what's going on.
Okay.
And the graphics are a lot better on Ready Control.
Got it. Yeah,
I'm
the Ready Control's been out there for a few years, so it is more developed.
Anyways, I mean, the pendant works just fine. It's just that I like some of the Ready Control with the PC just seems to be have the ability to have a lot more power.
It probably does right out of the box. Yeah. I know the 10.1, they, as you said, they are still developing some things, and I think, it's going to catch up eventually, because it's the electronics behind it are contemporary. So they just got to catch up with some of the programming. But
I'm sorry, I got sidetracked. I missed your last class in person. So
Yeah.
if it's there.
Yeah, so anyway, if you want to catch that Ready to Control, go out there. You'll find a link to that for sure. And then if you have any questions after that, you can reach out to me. I'm glad to help you out with that.
No, I appreciate it.
So,
Hey, Randy, have you ever carved any finger jointed panels?
finger joints?
Yeah. You can buy panels that are finger jointed.
Oh, you mean edge figure joints?
Yeah, so I guess edge or, yeah.
Certainly not on a CNC. I haven't.
Okay, I was just wondering how it would react.
Yeah, that seems like a better operation for maybe a router table.
They got the box joints you can cut.
Yeah, so that's a different kind of figure joint. The box joint, yeah, like on a drawer box.
No, I
Yeah.
meant I meant get a panel, you can buy panels that are already finger jointed together.
Right.
Those, I was wondering if you've ever carved one.
Yeah.
No,
No, I've not. Mm-mm.
okay.
Thank you, Randy.
All right, guys. Well, thanks everybody.
All right.
Have a good week, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Night, night.
Thank you.